Hey everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Business of Sport show. I'm Matt Ruddle, and today we are joined by none other than Michael Denbee. Hi, Mike.
How are you doing? All right.
All good, mate. All good.
Only my mother calls me Michael, so that's quite some introduction.
Either that or you're in trouble. So, Mike, for all those people out there who may not have seen you in action, I'm sure we can find some clips on YouTube. So, who are you, and what have you done? Only the good things, though.
Yeah, only the I'm Mike Denbee. I'm an ex-professional rugby player who used to play for London Welsh and other teams such as Plymouth Albion, Birmingham Solihull. And I now work in the city with American insurer Chubb in London.
Excellent. So before we kind of get into the old businessy kind of side of things, let's talk about the interesting stuff, the rugby side of things. So I was reading an article the other day that said that you came to rugby quite late. You know, I know you're a local boy to me, you know, from Western. So you came to rugby a bit late. Was it 16? And then you went on to Plymouth Uni, got a degree in. It almost sounds like I've stalked you, but you went on to Plymouth Uni to get a degree in business, wasn't it? And then you started your journey in professional sport. How did that kind of come about? How did you start playing for Plymouth?
So when I finished school, so my family's farmers in just outside of a place called Cheddar in Somerset. Still farming now. Dad always sort of said to me that he regretted never getting an education because when he was sort of 16, he had to leave school to go and work on the farm. So, you know, I finished school and it was then the option of do I take on the farm or do I go to university? And, you know, following him saying that to me, he's like, look, the farm's always going to be here, but there's a lot more with accounts and subsidies and things, of paperwork that needs doing on the farm these days. Go to uni, get a bit of a background in business and the administration of those types of things, which ultimately the farm's going nowhere. And if in 3-4 years you come back and decide you want to come on the farm, then you know, you'll be in a pretty good place. And so ultimately that's what I did. Went down to Plymouth Uni, was still playing rugby for Western-super-Mare, which, you know, was my sort of first senior club, which gave me a fantastic platform. And yeah, for the first sort of 3 years, I was travelling back to Western to play sort of National League rugby, you know, with them. Following going into my last year, I decided that I couldn't travel back, couldn't commit to travelling back. So sort of called up Plymouth and said, look, you know, I'm going to be down at the university in my last year. I don't want to stop playing, but can I sort of come and play for your second team? And, you know, went down there in the sort of August to pick up the back end of the pre-season. And then in my last year at uni, just started to play for sort of their second team, the West Country Warriors, as they were known. And it sort of escalated from there, really.
So, you know, if you look back now and thought, actually, you know, I want to. Did you ever envisage that you'd actually be a professional player?
No.
And sign
the
a
thing for me was I ultimately, you know, wanted to put myself into an environment where I could still, you know, play at a decent standard, whether that was, you know, for their second team or whether that was, you know, for another local team such as, you know, Ivy Bridge or Barnstable or someone like that who was a, you know, good quality teams around that, you know, Devon area. But ultimately I started playing and, you know, scored eight tries in 8 games playing in the back row and suddenly I was training with the first team. And yeah, it was quite an experience. Graham Dorr down there, bit of a West Country legend, and I still remember the first, one of the first mauling sessions that I did, and this was when Graham was still playing. So, he was 48, 49 at the time, still playing in the national leagues, or National One. And he was on the opposing team to me, and he's come straight through the maul and starts fish hooking me and trying to fill me in. And you've got a choice when you're a young kid. You're coming through. You either let your coach fill you in or you fill him in back. And next thing we're having a ruckus on the floor.
What a way to earn a contract!
And he seemed to take a like for me. Yeah. Unfortunately, a scrum slipped and I broke my hand in a training session, which meant I was out for 8 weeks, and then Graham basically said to me, right, we need to get you fitter. I see something in you, but you've basically got, you've been at uni on the piss for 3 years. We need to get you fit to play National League Rugby or national top tier rugby. So he basically said to me 3 times a week I had to meet him, either early morning or late afternoon, and he would chase me around Plymouth doing fartlek training on his bike, and yeah, you can imagine what that was like.
yeah. Well, yeah, not the funnest of things, but what a kind of a mentorship then, being taken under his wing. I mean, that's got to be something you've got to take pride in as well, I suppose.
I think. I look at it and I'm going, look, I was studying my last year degree. I was, getting up early or going in early before training to do extra stuff with Graham. He'd obviously seen something in me, but he basically said he needed to teach me a work rate. And look, I was never the best rugby player, but I was. I had a decent engine on me. Couldn't catch or pass, but I could tackle and I could tackle and get back and tackle again, and people would run into me and I'd just keep knocking them down. So, I give full credit to that because, ultimately he saw something in me, saw a bit of dog in me and took a punt. And actually after those 8 weeks, I came back and he, out of nowhere, really threw me into my debut against Northampton Saints the year that they were in the National One. Carlos Spencer playing, 10, Chris Ashton on the wing, the year he scored like 50 odd tries or whatever. And it was a proper sink or swim moment. Go and do whatever you can and we'll see what happens. And I ran my nuts off for 60 minutes, blew a gasket, and he hauled me off, but I'd done all right. So it was a big learning curve.
What a debut! I mean, for people watching who don't know who Carlos Spencer and Chris Ashton, they are legends of the game. Chris is still playing now on the fringes of the England team. Carlos Spencer was just a magician with the ball in hands. Some of the cheeky moves that he ended up pulling off were phenomenal. So what a kind of way to make a debut against a team like that. That's going to be fantastic. But fast forward then to life at London Welsh, and that those games to get you back into or get into the Premiership. What did that kind of feel like? Because a lot of us have played sports, not to that kind of standard, and not many people have played in games that you'd actually consider life changing. To go from the Championship to get to the top of the tree. I mean, talk us through that.
Yeah, so I think I was playing it the year before I joined Welsh. I was playing at Birmingham Solihull. Russell Earnshaw there had taken me into his squad that he was creating there, and the team had the most amazing team spirit. We fought probably the smallest budget in the league, but we were really, really tight knit. Unfortunately, the team got relegated, but I'd had a good season and London Welsh picked me up. So I went from basically a relegation into a sort of a top 4 championship side, which was in itself, massive for me. I think that championship year, the year we got promoted, was a real interesting year because obviously it was the year the RFU said that London Welsh wouldn't be able to go up. They didn't have a stadium to be able to deal with it. And we were playing Cornish Pirates in the double leg final, and the RFU gave us the news that we weren't going to be allowed to go up 2 hours before, or 2.5 hours before kickoff to the final, the first leg of the final. And it was one of those. It's like, well, the management came in and they basically said, look, do it on the pitch and we'll sort it out off it. So if you want motivation to say, a big F off to to the powers that be, it was that. And we went out and blew Cornish Pirates away in that first leg down in Penzance, which ultimately, coming back up to Oxford, where we were playing the second leg, the tie was almost done before we even got into that point. So, yeah, incredible, incredible feeling to be sort of involved in those 2 games, but under really sort of tricky circumstances where you didn't really know if you were going to be playing in the Prem or not if you won, because the RFU said no, it was going to be taken to court. Let's just put ourselves in a position. And again, from the most enjoyable playing years for me, that the squad of blokes that were put together there was just incredible. And again, it's there's so much history at Old Deer Park, and it was an absolute honour to pull on that shirt and play the number of times I did. And we'll come on to it, I'm sure, but that's hence why I pulled the shirt on again in the last sort of couple of years.
Yeah. So when did you actually finish playing properly the first time? Not when Kai managed to get you to put the boots on.
So professionally, I finished in 2014. So it got to the end of the or towards the end of the championship season. We were in a good place. Bristol were all but seeing themselves as being promoted. Obviously big budgets. Missed out a couple of times. Very much favourites for that. But I'd always seen myself in the city. I knew, look, I wasn't going to play for England, although there was a time when I thought I was going to be, in my mind, I was going to be the next big thing, like anyone does. But yeah, so I the business piece for me was huge, and I'd say that's probably the biggest thing I got out of going to uni was that mindset of what's next. I knew the career was short. I knew you'd be lucky if you got to 35, especially in the back row with the toll it takes on your body. So I was very much looking at that sort of next opportunity, and it came to the sort of February, March time of 2014, and I'd become second choice. Carl Kerwin, who's a really good mate of mine, he was brought in that year to be the first choice 7. Unfortunately, during the Premier, I'd picked up a few injuries and became what was seen as probably unreliable with regard to how many games I'd played during that period. So although I still played sort of 15, 16 games that last year, it was very much in the against the lesser, or what was seen as the lesser teams, or in the European Cup, etc., or not the European Cup, sorry, the British and Irish Cup. So actually, it almost made me think, look, I could be, I was 29, I could be a second choice again if they go up. Do I want to play A-League on a Monday night? against a load of 18-year-olds. As a 30-year-old, not really. And through my networking, I created myself an opportunity, and a company called Bluefin, which was an insurance brokers, they basically took a punt on me. They saw the networks I could potentially get into, and wanted a new business developer for their high net worth division. So I suddenly had some different rugby options available. Do I go for a new 2-3 year deal, or actually do I go, look, I've had a good stint in it. I've achieved my ultimate goal of my granddad seeing me play in the Premiership. Actually, do I go, thank you very much, my body still works, I'm still going to be able to play with my kids. Let's call it a day and go out on my own terms. So actually, and that was the big thing, was mentally, I made that decision in sort of March time, knowing that I'd be finishing up in sort of June or end of May, June, when the playoffs finished, to then start a new job in the sort of July. So that gave me a period of, being at peace with what was happening.
That's quite a big thing, because you said, the life of a pro athlete isn't a particularly long one. So at the age of 29, then to kind of make the decision that with probably another 3, 4, 5 years ahead, to kind of not cut and run, but to make that decision based upon your body. Because I've seen interviews with people like Sam Warburton and people like that. Again, he retired quite early on, and you kind of go through the list of injuries, and even watching a podcast with Dylan Hartley the other week and saying, well, he still suffers from issues with concussion. I think we're in that position where we haven't seen an old professional yet, a proper, 60, 70-year-old professional who's gone through the ringer. So to actually make that decision, as you said, whilst your body still, just about works, to then make that leap and actually having that network to kind of fall back on. I know that we've joked many a time that's you were brought in to play golf with the clients and schmooze, and you don't actually do any real work. It's just constant tea time after tea time. But that's a big step, to kind of leave that world. So was there any help, with professional bodies to transition from being a professional out of the game, or was it literally off your own back?
No, so I think there's two elements to it. I think there's the RPA, Rugby Players Association, headed up by Damien Hopley, is an incredible support network for athletes within the game, plus our athletes who are retired or are forced to retire through injury. That it's an incredible organisation, but you have to want to use it. And that's the big thing for me, was when I came to London Welsh, I had my degree behind it. I didn't go to uni just to waste it. I also knew that, 7 years of rugby, your degree does become a little bit irrelevant, but actually, can I leverage that a little bit with regard to a work ethic and an understanding of, business. So for me, it was about, London Welsh is a massive network of people. For me, it was about speaking to the sponsors, speaking to people after the games, going in on my days off to meet people for a coffee, to do some work experience. Whereas, you see a lot of the younger guys who go home and they play Xbox or PlayStation, or they've got their unlimited Cineworld cards and they're going to the cinema 2 or 3 times a week. Well, I was getting a suit on, going into the city, and because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I was good with people, and so some sort of sales role. But what I didn't want to happen was, it came to the end, there was no contract, or you get an injury and then your hand is forced, and you then have to make a decision that you're not comfortable with. Whereas actually, look, I'm not. We've talked of Sam Warburton and things like that. Well, they were at the top of the game and earning the top of the game money. I was a mid-tier player. I earned all right. I earned a living, don't get me wrong, and it was fine. But ultimately, my transition would be a lot easier because I wasn't going from earning X amount up here to then have to go down to here. And I was lucky that I played some semi-professional stuff as well, which ultimately helped top up the wage I was earning in the city when I sort of finished. But yeah, going back to the RPA, there's a development officer for each of the the top clubs. So and Caroline Guthrie, who was there, she would be in the club once a week, and she would be helping to sort of create opportunities and introductions. And I started to, once I decided I was going to go into insurance, I wanted to start doing some studies even though I wasn't in it. And they've got bursaries that they paid a good percentage of my studies for. And there's a lot of guys who do sort of business management degrees out of Newcastle. There's different types of courses that you can do, but people need to have to want to do it, and actually not just waste that money, because ultimately it's a bursary that you should use and complete something. So yeah, suddenly coming out of rugby, it was very much about, right, let's kick on, new career, let's I've retired once, let's get in. And I think what I found when I went into the city was there were people who'd gone straight in from uni, and they were 7, 8, 10 years through their career, to a similar age to where I was, and they were getting quite tired. They'd been doing the same thing, and they'd lost that sort of enthusiasm for a new job. I was lucky enough that I had the life skills and the skills that you learn from rugby in that professional environment, and then I was coming in, people speaking to a 21-year-old compared to someone who's 30, how you hold yourself, how you can have those conversations. I might not have been anywhere near as knowledgeable, but actually there was it seemed to be there was a mindset, well, I'd prefer to speak to Mike than to that other person, because they're younger and in their mind they weren't as experienced. Really, it's a really strange mentality, really.
Yeah, I completely get that, because again, as you said, it's the life experiences and things like that, and you can't fast track those things.
No.
And especially I think coming from a professional sports background, is where you have to show that dedication, you have to show that willingness to kind of learn. And it's quite interesting when you said about your earnings when you were professional. I was talking with a friend of mine who played for Doncaster Knights, I think it was, and saying about whenever he got injured, for instance, and they might do things like docking wages and stuff like that, and it almost seemed like a very fickle position to be in. You're not in the Premiership, so therefore you're not earning those kind of wages.
Yeah.
Yet you're still required to be as professional as a Premiership player, and yet there are all manner of things that go on behind the scenes. Before we kind of move more into the business side of things, are there any regrets that you have from your time as a professional rugby player?
Sort of looking back, I think you do get caught up in a bubble, and you almost feel that you're a bit invincible. I probably wish that I wish I'd done, stayed longer to do more, more one-on-one skill sessions, more recovery, taking that more seriously, more stretching, flexibility work. Yoga now is very prevalent. Like, I go back to after I'd played rugby on a Saturday after, first game of pre-season, then going to try and play golf on a Sunday. And I walked off after 3 holes because I couldn't rotate my back and swing a club. And honestly, just ridiculous, the stress that your body goes into when you're, making 10, 15, 20 tackles a game, getting up, over, bang, 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 that physicality to it. Yes, there's a time and a place for going out on the beers with the boys, but there's also making sure that you recover properly as well. So yeah, I look back on that and actually go, do you know what? I think there's, you look at some of the injuries, and if I'd been more flexible, or if I'd done more recovery, or you know, did I come back from injury too soon? Yes, definitely. Premiership year, I should have had an operation, whereas I, you know, tried to, you know, push it through because I wanted to get back playing. Came back too soon, and you just can't get away with it. Though, you know, I was 80%, you know, trying to, you know, perform in the Premiership, and unfortunately get found out. And you know, it's those sorts of examples where you're going, actually, to a rugby club, you're just a commodity. You know, they're a business at the end of the day, and they want to get out of you everything that they can. But actually, you've got to respect yourself and look after yourself more. And I think you're seeing it a lot more now around, you know, Joe Marler's interview at the weekend on mental health, and he had to put himself first. So how many people pull themselves out of international setups because their minds aren't right? You just don't see it. But then he actually came back because he was honest about it and dealt with it in the right way. I think, like you're saying in that, you know, that Doncaster piece, they're much smaller squads. You know, the key players are, you know, it's not as big a squad. So the key players are, you know, so there's a lot of pressure from coaches to get their players on the pitch to perform because they want to win. And that's quite tough on that basis, I think. You know, actually having the balls to stand up and go, I'm not right, I'm not ready. You know, I need to have more rehab, or, you know, this is going to go bad again and it will deteriorate if I don't give it that extra week or two or whatever it might be.
Yeah. And that's funny you say about recovery, because, I mean, we talked about it just before we started recording, but that legendary night out about 5 years ago, that weekend where we did the opening ceremony of the Rugby World Cup, and then we came to see you play. I can't remember the team you were playing for at the moment. I think it was the season after you had retired.
East Grinstead, yeah.
Yeah, and you played a game of rugby, and then we all went out for a few quiet drinks the night after, and it always amazed me, because I kind of think, you know, no, I've never played rugby to the highest of standards, but I certainly know that, you know, having played in 80 minutes and then trying to go out on the night out, sometimes I'm as flexible as a brick at times. And some of the moves you pulled that night, I mean, yeah. But yeah, I totally get that in terms of recovery. And I think, you know, when you look back, how things have changed now, you know, you see players on Instagram and they're you know, doing their recovery sessions and you know, using all the latest, you know, tools and gadgets under the sun to kind of help them get back more. And yeah, I think it has been something that's neglected. So let's talk about you outside of rugby then.
Yeah.
The world of business. So what is it that you actually do? Again, we
What do I
times
actually
about
do?
playing golf, and but yeah, talk about your current role, or certainly the roles you've had since retiring.
So when I finished, I went to Bluefin, which is an insurance brokers. So my role was to try and do and find high net worth individuals and do their personal insurances. So household, motor, art, jewelry, all that sort of holiday homes, all of that, and you know, place that with some of the top insurers in the in the country, so to speak, or in the world even. I was, you know, lucky enough, I had a good network. Very interesting, actually, that the network that I did have, the people you were like, yeah, I'll definitely be able to speak to them, who were mates and stuff, actually don't want you knowing what they've got. And, you know, very obviously say, no, that's fine, absolutely. But it would be the people that you didn't think you could get into that you actually found out you could have conversations with. And I was lucky enough that I did reasonably well over the couple of years that I was there. And then Chubb, which is the company I'm at now and I've been with for the last 4 years, came in and sort of headhunted me. And I joined them as a strategy and development manager. So my job now is I look after clients, I look after brokers to, make sure that we see their best business, that the business that we've already got with them, that we keep hold of. If there's any issues, get it sorted out. Make sure if there's a claim, that our claims team and it's all going smoothly. So I'm sort of a bit of the sort of middleman between the broker and the insurer to make sure that things run smoothly and that the relationships at the best point. And I look after sort of 10, 12 brokers and some of the now which I've worked my way up through, but look after some of the biggest brokers that the business deals with. So things have gone very, very well on that basis. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey so far. What's next then? It's interesting. I think this whole period's been a really interesting time for me. I want to continue learning. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I've been doing all my insurance exams. I'm about to finish my diploma. I've got an exam next week to finish that off. So what that now looks like, I'm not sure actually. I think, I seem to be regarded within the business. I think there's some opportunities. We're in 50 odd countries globally. I would love to, have a stint abroad, whether that be in, Singapore, US, Oz, something like that. But it's got to be for the right opportunity. I think naturally it would be a sort of sales manager type role, running a team. That would be probably my next role. But I've just tried this year to sort of round out a bit more and actually just not waste the year. I want to come out the back end with some sort of qualifications and things like that, because the weekends when there was nothing to do, actually I decided I was going to study rather than complete Netflix. But it's tough. Like I think I'd have gone absolutely nuts, especially when we're in full lockdown and you had to stay at home and you could only go out once a day for a walk. Well, I just wanted to make sure that I was in the best position possible.
Yeah, no, that's quite interesting, because I've kind of seen a lot of, I think, how people have dealt with kind of lockdown and whatever's gone on over the last few months. It's been very, very different. I think there have been some people who have literally just tried to sit out the storm and not kind of do anything. And as you say, completed Netflix and Amazon Prime and everything else out there. And yet there are others who seem to have come out of lockdown in a lot stronger position, where they've actually spent that time more wisely, whether that's working with their existing clients or whether that's just actually learning to raise their game. It kind of brings us round to kind of one of the questions that I've asked all the guests, although slightly tweaked. But what would be your advice? You say your three best tips that you would give, say, somebody who is transitioning from rugby or even starting their rugby career. Actually, let's look at it from that point of view. Somebody who's starting to look at a professional sports career, what would be your advice, knowing what you know throughout your career now and where you're at?
I think, for me, because I started professionally when I was, 23. I think don't give up. I think there's always bumps in the road and there's always things that happen along the way. But actually, it's how if you leave somewhere or you're not wanted somewhere, there's a reason for it. Find out that reason, then look to improve on that basis. Nobody's perfect. There's always things to improve on. Well, how can you do that? What does that, just because you don't fit for one club, well, it doesn't mean you don't fit in another club. That sort of thing from a rugby side of things. I think that the preparation piece, where we're talking around, I had a work rate, but then I should have worked more on my skills, that sort of thing. Very much, you need to be a lot more rounded these days. And you look how powerful and big the players are these days. It's a different game from when I was playing. only a few years back. But I think from a player who's sort of transitioning or is currently playing, it's more about use your network. I think if you're in a professional environment, there's a huge network around you, and actually loads of people want to help. You know, the amount of people that, you know, if you want to have a conversation, yes, they might not be able to have something for you there, but they might be able to introduce you to someone else and someone else. So actually starting to get an understanding of what you might want to go into or what interests you, that'd be the big thing. And actually then trying to, well, okay, if, you know, if you want to go in the business world, well, what part of business? Do you want to go into finance? Do you want to go, you know, into the banking way? Or do you want to go into insurance? Or do you want to go into wealth management? Or do you want to go into mortgage broking? What takes your fancy? And actually then try and get a bit of experience within that, because ultimately sport will get you so far, and people can open doors, but actually you've got to then push your way through it. Yeah. And I think for me, that was where, you know, I had my business degree from, you know, 2000 and whatever it was at 8, but I finished, you know, on a CV 7 years later, and it's what you've been doing. Well, yeah, I've played professional sport. Well, what have you done in between that as well? Well, that's why I started the studies, and it's like, well, I've completed the insurance, you know, the foundation insurance exam, and I started this one because, you know, I want that to be seen that I've taken an interest. I'm not just trying to have a job because of the sake of it. And actually, I'm investing in myself to try and put my, you know, a step forward. You know, I then ultimately had to create a business plan as to how I was going to get into these individuals, what that was going to look like as a growth mechanism for a 3-year plan, and present that to X, Y, or Z. And so it's really thinking about how you want to do that. You obviously see a lot of other people who go down the route of, you know, coffee businesses or, you know, breweries, you know, beers or things like that. And see, that's just great. Even if that doesn't, you know, become your full-time job, ultimately it's quite a nice, you know, it keeps your mind ticking and keeps you working. So you finish rugby and you've got something that's going to distract you rather than, you've had a shit day at rugby, you know, you didn't have a very good game, you know, and it's all very much mindset as to how you can get through. Your coach is giving you a go, and well, actually, rather than just sitting at home and going, well, the coach hates me, this is crap, I can't deal with it. Actually, you're throwing yourself into something else that then sort of levels you back out and realise that it's not just about your little bubble. Actually, there's a bigger picture to it.
Yeah. So answer me this then, bit of a curveball question, but you can kind of mention it there. What is it with rugby players starting coffee businesses? Because I've seen Brad Barrett's got Tiki Coffee or whatever. Yeah. I think George North has opened a coffee shop in Wales. And I think there's a number of other players that seem to have gone in to the kind of posh coffee kind of business. I think somebody else is an iced coffee business as well. So what is it with rugby players and coffee businesses?
Well, what do you think they all do when they finish playing? Well, they finish playing on a training session at 2:00 in the afternoon. They go for a coffee. On the day off, they go for a coffee. They, you know, it's basically going, I'm giving bloody Starbucks and Costa £2.50 every time. Let's start my own. Let's make it cheaper for myself. No, I think I think it's, you know, those guys who chuck themselves into it. You know, you see all sorts of businesses like that are starting up and trying to, you know, create something different. And I just think anyone who's going to try that and actually is going to invest in themselves, and whether it works or not, there's huge learnings from it, and it'll make that person more rounded. And it might not be that they go into. It might be the start of a business, but they understand the mechanism behind it and they make some mistakes along the way. But actually that leads to them then, you know, setting up maybe a property business or something separate, but they've done that sort of budgeting piece. They understand the journey. They understand an element of what's required. And actually that's a bit of a foundation. So actually, that coffee business piece, you do see it, but it's also another element of, you know, you got Paul James over in Newport there. He's got his, you know, in Neath there, he's got his cafe and his bar there. You know, it's that's a cracking little place, and it's just different angles that people go down, isn't it? And some are lucky enough and want to go in the city. Some people don't. Some people go back on the farm. Some people, go into different businesses, isn't it? And because everyone comes from different walks of life, and some are privately educated, some are not.
Yeah, very, very, very true. And no doubt you'll get free cups of coffee there with mentioning Paul James's place in Clarendon.
Well,
He played in
yeah.
his testimonial.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
They're sponsored by. Okay, final couple of questions. Hardest opponent to play against? Player-wise?
Sorry, hardest?
Player to play against. Who didn't you look forward to tackling?
Oh, who did I look? So, coming off the bench on my debut was Tonga. So, impact player with half an hour to go. I was only on for 10 minutes before I got hauled off. So, that running at you at full tilt. He was quite some guy. Billy Vunipola as well when we played against Sarries. Again, picking off the base. Not ideal when you're at 7 off the scrum.
No. Yeah, praying he doesn't come down your channel. Yeah.
So Redby too. I think if I look at, from a battle perspective, my Prem debut was against Quins, and Chris Robshaw, England captain at the time, was the 7 I was playing against. What a way to make a debut against him, and that was an amazing experience.
Massively. What a way to try and make a statement, taking on the England captain. Looking back, what was your favourite moment that you can properly talk about? None of that off the pitch shenanigans.
You go back and look at games and that championship winning final, down in Penzance against Pirates, after being given the news that we wouldn't get into, weren't going to be allowed into the Prem. That game was amazing. Your Prem debut against Quins, running out of the Stoop on a Friday night, was pretty special, as well as the pretty much sellout game at Oxford against Wasps over the Christmas game. That was cool as well. I think for me, it's been the travelling around the world with rugby, whether that's been through, when I was England students and we were playing against France, or, whether it was counties and we played against the US and Canada, or, when we're in the
or the Italian Classic.
Or I've been 3 times to Bermuda through that as a guest of the Italian Classic. So, there's I've met and played with some amazing people, around the world, and ultimately, it's given me things I never thought I would have, had. If I'd decided not to go to uni, I'd be working on the farm now.
Yeah, there's quite a different pathway.
Yeah.
So do you see yourself ever lacing up the boots again?
Well, I'm now
never say never.
I'm now 36. I'm a true vet now, so yeah, I'm open to any teams that are looking for players for Dubai. That's always. I'll do another classics with Italy, because it's the next. Well, unfortunately, this year's been cancelled, but the next year's their 10th anniversary. So that'll be me bowing out with the Italians, I think. I would guess. I won't go back and play league rugby. I only went back and played for Welsh a couple of times because I was sat on 48 games, and 47 games. So I played 3 league games for Welsh and made my 50.
Nice.
So that was nice to hit that, but it was just 3 games before going out to Bermuda, because it's that rugby is pretty savage out there, playing against the likes of South Africa, Argentina, and some of the French sides, etc. So yeah, I'll never say never, but actually, you know, I can actually rotate my back now. You know, I can, you know, touch my toes again, and the body feels pretty good. So I certainly won't go back to playing regularly.
Yeah, Mike, it's been great catching up and great kind of talking and finding out a bit more about your journey. You know, really, really interesting. So thanks for being a guest, and you know, we'll have to catch up again sometime. I'm sure there's probably a lot more stories to talk about.
No, thank you for inviting me on. You know, hopefully my story sort of resonates with a few people, and yeah, it's been quite a journey so far, and in my mind, just sort of kicking off now.
Definitely, mate, definitely. Well, thanks for coming on board. Everyone at home, thanks for watching.